the house that never called the police. House 27 stood in the heart of Black Hollow, a gray monument to silence. It was a place where the streetlights flickered and died, and where the neighborhood curtains were always drawn tight. No matter what happened on the surrounding streets, screams in the night, or shadows in the alleyways, the phone at the local precinct never rang for House 27. It was an island of quiet in a sea of secrets. Detective Mara Vance had a mind for statistics, and the numbers in Black Hollow didn't add up. She spent her nights in a dimly lit office, staring at a map where red pins marked the last known locations of the missing. Every line she drew, every connection she made, converged on a single point: the house that the police refused to see. The owner of the house was Elias Crow. He was a man who moved with a slow, deliberate grace, often seen tending to the skeletal bushes in his front yard. He always wore a smile that felt like a mask, too wide and too perfect. While the town whispered, Elias simply worked, his garden shears snicking rhythmically in the heavy air. Curiosity eventually outweighed caution. Mara arrived at the gate of House 27 at exactly 9:13 p.m. The air was unnaturally cold, turning her breath into white plumes. As she stepped onto the porch, her watch pulsed with a steady, ticking heartbeat, the only sound in the suffocating stillness of the night. The door opened before she could knock. Elias stood there, a shadow against the dim light of the foyer. "Detective Vance," he said, his voice a low hum. "I've been expecting you." He led her inside, down a corridor that seemed to grow longer with every step, the walls lined with more doors than the exterior of the house should allow. The interior was a vacuum of time. There were no clocks on the walls, only pale circles of dust where they had once hung. Mirrors were absent as well, replaced by even more doors of varying sizes. Elias gestured to the surrounding wood. "I find that looking at oneself, or at the time, only distracts from the company I keep," he whispered. Mara stopped when she heard it, a soft, frantic tapping. It wasn't coming from the hallway, but from behind a door reinforced with heavy iron straps. It was a rhythmic sound, like fingernails against dry wood. She moved closer, her hand resting on her service weapon, but the house seemed to sigh around her, muffling the noise. She turned her flashlight to the wall next to the door. It wasn't just old wood. The surface was a chaotic mosaic of names, thousands of them, carved so deeply they looked like scars. They were stacked on top of one another, a frantic history of people who had once walked the streets of Black Hollow and never returned. "You recognize them, don't you?" Elias asked, stepping closer. Mara's light landed on a name she had seen on a missing persons poster only that morning. These weren't just names. They were the people themselves, trapped in the grain of the house. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The house didn't just hide the missing, it consumed them. "The police stay away because they are wise, Mara," Elias said, pulling a heavy iron key from his pocket. "They know that once you step over the threshold, you belong to the collection. They can hear the names calling to them in the dark, and they are terrified of being added to the wall." Mara reached for her radio, her fingers trembling. "Dispatch, I need." But the device only let out a wet, gargling static. The shadows in the corners of the room began to move, liquid and thick, creeping across the floor like spilled ink. The light from her flashlight began to dim, swallowed by the supernatural hunger of the house. She turned to flee, but the front door was gone, replaced by a wall of names that felt warm to the touch. Elias stood in the center of the darkness, his smile the last thing visible as the house claimed its latest guest. "No one ever calls the police from here, Mara," he whispered. "Because here, there is no one left to answer."